my name's Mark, and welcome to the ranch. Today, I'm gonna be cooking low and slow a 2-inch thick porterhouse steak that I picked up at my local BJ's the other day. I'm gonna cook it at about 225 degrees, probably add a little bit of hickory wood to the fire, and then once it gets to within 20 degrees of its final temperature, I'm gonna sear both sides using the Slow N Sear. I've never cooked a porterhouse steak before, so I'm looking forward to giving this a shot. So let's fire up the pit and let's get started. As you can tell, this really is a monster-sized porterhouse. And if you take a look at both the Tenderloin side as well as the New York strip side, it's got a lot of fantastic marbling throughout. The other thing that I did last night was I added some kosher salt to both sides of the meat in order to dry brine it overnight. And what dry brining does is it helps to lock in the moisture within the meat. It also will tenderize it, and the salt ends up penetrating through the meat, so rather than just having a salty surface, there's more of a salty flavor throughout. So hopefully by using this technique, when it's finished cooking, it'll be juicy, it'll be tender, and it'll have fantastic flavor. I'll be using the Weber kettle today, and the reason why is because I can have 2 zones of cooking on there. So on the indirect side, I'll be able to cook low and slow at about 225 degrees. I'll put in about 20 to 25 lit briquettes on the hot side to keep that temperature. And then once I get it to within that 20 degrees of my final temperature, I'm going to put about half to 2/3 of a chimney of lit charcoal back on the hot side, and that's where we'll end up searing it. This porterhouse looks really good. It's got a nice dark color to it. It seems that when you dry brine it, it makes the color a little more richer. The Tenderloin right here looks really good, nice marbling in that. The New York strip, again, good marbling on that side as well. Let's get this on the kettle. All right, so the kettle is getting up to 225 degrees, so I'm gonna put the porterhouse on. Just gonna stick the temperature probe in here. And when this gets up to about 80 degrees, I'm going to flip it. And then probably want 115 is when I'll take it off and prep it for searing. I'm also gonna add a couple of hickory chunks here to get a little hickory smoke flavor in there. So we'll cover this up and we'll check back on it in a little bit. That already has some real nice color to it. It smells so good too. All right, so we'll leave this on until it gets to about 115 degrees, and then we'll take it off, dry it off, and get it prepped to sear. The internal temperature is about 115 degrees. I want to cook this to about 135, so I'm going to take it off now and prep it and put in the hot charcoal for the sear. I also took the grate off. I'm gonna let it cool a little bit because I'm gonna use something called the cold grate technique. And if the grate is hot, what it ends up doing is it ends up searing lines into the steak, and I don't wanna do that. I wanna have a sear that goes all over. So with the cold grate, it won't sear it, only the fire will sear it. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just dry off the surface of the meat. And the reason we do that is we don't want, when we sear it, for it to be steaming or trying to steam off the water, which will kind of slow down the searing process. So we'll remove the water, and we'll also add a little bit of olive oil, which will actually help with the searing process. And I'm also gonna season it with some black pepper. Let's flip this over. Do the same thing on this side. A little bit of olive oil. And the pepper. This is ready to go back on, and we're gonna start the searing process. So we're gonna put the grate back on now. It's cooled off a little bit. And we're gonna put the Porterhouse on the sear zone. And we're gonna sear that for 1 minute. After a minute, we're gonna flip it and do it for another minute. All right, so that's been about a minute. We're gonna take this off the heat. And we're gonna flip it on the other side and have it sear on this side for another minute. All right, that's been another minute. So we're gonna take that off. And I'm gonna flip it back over and do another minute on this side. All right, so it's our third minute. We're gonna do one more minute on the other side. You can see the nice char on the top. That fire is just charring up that other side. It smells so good, you can actually smell the pepper coming off of it. All right, it's been another minute. I'm just gonna flip that around, get it off. Let's take a temperature reading of the steak. It's a little different in different spots. I want to get it to 135, and it's about 120-ish. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to just leave it on the indirect side for a little bit longer until it gets up to 135. So I'm gonna take this off at this point. The temperature varies depending on where I probe it. In some places it's like 118, in other places it's 145. So I'm gonna pull it off now, and then we'll cut into it. All right, so I cut into these, and they're a little bit more medium-ish than I would have hoped. I was trying to shoot for medium rare, but the temperature was kind of all over the place when I was measuring it at different parts of the meat. In some places it was around 118, other places it was 145. So I probably should have pulled it off a little bit sooner, but it looks really juicy and it looks good. So I'm gonna take a taste test. I'm gonna first try the New York strip side. That tastes really good. And it's still really juicy, and you can actually taste the smoke flavor on the outside because I use that hickory wood. All right, let's try the filet side. Got a nice sear on there. That's really tasty too. A little more tender, which is to be expected. So this is pretty good. Again, I would have liked to have gone for more of a medium rare, but it still tastes good, and time to eat it for dinner. So when I initially cut into the steak, I thought I had overcooked it a little bit. I was shooting for medium rare, but it was looking like it was more of a medium. But it was really just on the edges, because once I brought it inside and I cut it off the bone, the whole midsection of the steak was a perfect medium rare. So it came out exactly the way I had hoped for, and it tasted great, had a really nice sear on the outside. The filet in particular was super tender, and it just had a good taste throughout. So it's all gone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, share it with all your friends, and if you're not currently a subscriber to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time at the ranch.